Knock, knock. Who's there? Friday. Friday who? Fridays are awesome. I'm Carl Azuz for CNN 10, and this particular Friday leads into a 3-day weekend for many folks across America because January 20th is the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. It's named for the American Baptist minister and civil rights leader who was actually born on January 15th in 1929, but for more than 3 decades, the federal holiday that honors his accomplishments has been celebrated on the third Monday in January. Public events, marches, speeches by civil rights leaders and politicians are all part of it. And the U.S. government recognizes Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a day of service. It's said to be a day on, not a day off, and the goal of that is to encourage Americans to volunteer in their communities to improve them. Dr. King himself was the leader of the Montgomery Improvement Association, named for the city of Montgomery, Alabama, which is now known as the birthplace of the U.S. Civil Rights Movement in the 1950s. King had a reputation for being an eloquent speaker. He felt strongly that peaceful events like marches were the best methods of achieving civil rights for African Americans. King's influence was growing when he founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1957, and in 1963 he led the March on Washington, where he delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. The next year, Dr. King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. When changes within the civil rights movement and occasional discouragement challenged him in the late 1960s, King found revival through his Christian faith. CNN's Dana Bash filed this report on Dr. King's legacy on the 50th anniversary of his death.
This is unbelievable. You look up there, it says Mason Temple. This is where Martin Luther King, 50 years ago, gave his incredible mountaintop speech.
I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
That night, April 3rd, 1968, King checked in here, the Lorraine Motel.
He gets dressed around 5:45 and he steps outside on the balcony of room 306 and he speaks to other guests that are in the courtyard. At approximately 6:01, a fatal shot rings out. Dr. King lies mortally wounded on the balcony. He's taken from the balcony to St. Joseph's Hospital, and he's pronounced dead at 7:05 p.m.
Shocked and saddened by the brutal slaying tonight of Dr. Martin Luther King, I ask every citizen to reject the blind violence that has struck Dr. King, who lived by nonviolence.
I am tired. I am weak.
To me, it's like a returning to something rudimentary and fundamental. I mean, this is where Martin Luther King breathed his last breath.
The owner of the Lorraine Motel decided not to recheck this room out in Dr. King's honor and memory.
This is exactly how it was left?
It was left this way.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Tell me how you're feeling. I was watching you standing here.
Well, you know, it's very emotional to come here. I was not here that evening. He changed my life. He inspired me to stand up, to speak up, and to never give up.
10-second trivia. Which of these European universities is the oldest? University of Bologna, Cambridge, Oxford, or Salamanca? Italy's University of Bologna was founded in 1088, making it the oldest university in the Western world. There are a lot of good jobs in the United States that do not require a 4-year college degree. But for decades, studies have indicated that people with college degrees usually earn more than people without them, at least on average. What might surprise you is that it may not matter so much where that degree comes from. Even though elite schools like Princeton, Harvard, Columbia, MIT, and Yale frequently top the list of America's best colleges, there are a lot of millionaires and some billionaires who started out at community college, and some who never finished a college degree.
The vast majority of American schools actually accept well over 50% of their applicants, but there is a tier that are highly selective that take fewer than 20%, 10%, in some cases fewer than 6% of their applicants, and what parents and kids will do to get into those schools is practically heroic. There's a question that no one addresses, which is, are those graduates of elite schools who go on to great success, is that a reflection of what happened to them at those elite schools, or is it a reflection of a lifetime of privilege that invariably led to admission into and attendance at one of those elite schools?
In my experience in business, there is very little difference, if any, between a very high-priced business education and what's available for a lot less money. I learned just as much at the University of Nebraska as I did at Wharton.
You hear a lot of successful people who attended elite schools say you don't need to. They don't notice some appreciable difference in the quality of people who came from, say, a large public school with a fairly high acceptance rate and someone who came from a very elite private college with a low acceptance rate.
If somebody graduated from a great university, that may be an indication that they will be capable of great things, but it's not necessarily the case. No.
We've turned the college admissions process into this sort of shopping mall where we view certain things as the Neiman Marcus, others as the J.C. Penney, and God forbid you end up in the Target across the street. But what matters much, much more than where you go to school, and this is, there's no doubt about this, is what you do when you get to that school.
Hey, you might have heard we started a YouTube channel. You should check it out. It's awesome, like Fridays. In fact, that's where you can find the full version of today's show, including the 10 out of 10, the pun rap, Friday music, today's shout out. You can see all that by hitting this link on our homepage, subscribing, and checking out today's episode. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Thank you for watching CNN.